Hi, Grandma. I heard you had a few questions about high cholesterol and triglycerides, so I would be more than happy to answer any questions you have. So the first question that you have is, how can we lower blood cholesterol? So we can do this by consuming less than 10% of our calories from saturated fatty acids and replacing them with either polyunsaturated sources of fat or monounsaturated sources. And why are saturated fats important? So saturated fats are important because they are the major component of the phospholipid membrane that makes up our cells. But the key is to get the right amount of saturated fat from the diet. We just have a natural tendency to kind of overdo what the recommended guidelines are. So it's really important to be mindful of how much we're actually consuming. Which saturated fatty acid would lower cholesterol the most? So that would actually be palmitic acid. And remember that the sources of major sources for this acid are in palm oil and dairy fats, and to some degree in meats. What two things increase coronary heart disease? So that would be having high cholesterol to a certain extent, and also having elevated LDL, so the low density lipoproteins in the blood. Is the evidence strong to support an association between saturated fatty acid intake and the risk of coronary heart disease? So no, the evidence is actually not very strong. A few studies have found a positive relationship between saturated fatty acid intake and the risk of coronary heart disease and coronary heart disease mortality. But the evidence for the most part is not entirely conclusive. There's proponents that it is, and others that suggest that there's just not enough evidence. What about animal studies? So when animals are actually fed a diet that's high in saturated fats, they do in fact develop coronary heart disease. But the difference is, I guess, observed between animals and humans. There is a difference. Perhaps in the way that we metabolize saturated fatty acids versus animals. So animal studies don't necessarily translate over to what is observed in humans. And then, so what does the recent data say? And actually, in a recent meta-analysis of prospective epidemiological studies, showed no significant evidence that was strong to implicate saturated fatty acids leading to an increased risk of coronary heart disease or cardiovascular disease. What are the worst triglyceride-rich lipoproteins? So the worst would actually be beta VLDL. The second worst would be IDL. The third worst would be the small, very low density lipoproteins. And then the fourth worst would be the large, very low density lipoproteins. What are some common causes of high triglycerides? So common causes that lead to elevated triglycerides include an elevated BMI, having too much visceral adipose tissue, and then being overweight. So I hope I answered all your questions, Grandma, and I'll see you next week so we can talk about health a little more. Okay, love you, bye.